Welcome to Brain Strength. This is a series where this average fool teaches you a thing or two about sports psychology, while on occasion doing some athletic things, or just some examples to help you learn how to grow in different areas. I'm your host, RJ Lynch, and with my master's in sports psychology, let's get this thing rolling. In this episode of Brain Strength, I will be talking about communication. Something we do every day. It happens instinctively, but deep down, we don't always understand it to its true degree, understand what it can do for us, how we can be better at it, and what it all looks like. At its basic layer, communication is the sharing of information, it's the exchange of thoughts and feelings, it's making sure that other people understand what you're talking about, doing, what everything is. For communication, there's two standard forms of it that we're very keen on, that we all understand, do every day, and hear quite a bit about. The first is verbal. So the words we use, the me talking to you right now, these words coming out of my mouth hole, that is a form of communication. It is the most common one that we think of when we talk about communication. But the words themselves are not the only thing that go into the verbal communication, but also the way we emphasize words, the way we might pause and continue, how we move through a sentence. If we go super fast, if we're talking at 100 miles an hour and trying to rep God the hell out of it, then we're trying to talk like this and that, versus slowing down, going slow. Like I said, how we put emphasis on things. If you were to take the sentence, I've got training today, and put emphasis on different words, you're going to get different meanings. Could be type someone, I've got training today, to I've got training today, or I've got training today. Just by putting the emphasis on each different word, I'm saying something a little bit different, inflecting slightly on how I feel emotionally about the training I've got today. Next up, we have our nonverbals. So the way we move, our facial expressions, our body language and posture. Different gestures. As you watch more Brain Tears, you see me moving my hands a lot. I'm going to the side, clapping like a seal, whatever it is. Those are all nonverbal ways of communicating. How I sit. Am I sitting here tall and proud? Am I crouched down, where even just being in this position, someone from me would have a harder time hearing and understanding what I'm saying, versus when I'm up here? It's a different way of communicating. It's a different way of sending how you're feeling. Even just being here, first here, sends people a message. Next up, you have some of the non-traditional forms of communication, ones that we all use but might not think about as much. The first thing is written communication. So when we write things down, when we leave sticky notes across places, when we put our self-talk statements up on our mirror, that's a form of written communication. Though it's to ourselves, it's still a form of written communication. When our coach gives us a scouting report or the playbook in words, whatever it is, that's a form of written communication. Then there's visual. For this, think about watching film or play diagrams. In college football, you'll see them hold up signs with different images on them to represent a play. Those are your visual forms of communication. Listening is, in fact, a form of communication because it sends a certain message by how you listen. Are you listening to understand the other people talking, or are you listening to just respond? If you're listening to truly understand someone, you're demonstrating and transmitting this knowledge to them that you actually care about what they're saying, that you're trying to understand them and care about them as the speaker. Instead of when you're just listening to have a response, all you're caring about is your response. And that sends a message to them. Then we have our emotional communication. It can be the outward emotion. So if we cry at something, so if we're very sad or very happy, just swelling with emotions. Or it can be the less subtle things. It can be how we transmit our empathy to someone. So going over someone who's just had bad play, missed the free throw that would have won the game, and we wrap our arm around them. Yes, the wrapping the arm is a little bit of a nonverbal form, but it's also that shared empathy that we're getting at, that like, I understand where you're at, I'm here for you, care about you, still love you. That's a way of communicating emotion to them. Then we have our electronics. So text messages, emails, social media posts, all ways of communicating information. They're now from an electronic standpoint. So now that we know the different types of communication, what does it look like when it's effective versus when it's not effective? Well, when it's effective, communication is clear and concise. I'm speaking, you understand what I'm saying. When it's ineffective, it's vague or ambiguous. So think of when you're giving feedback to a teammate. If all you say is, I don't like your passes, or I don't like you, it's very vague. It's very ambiguous, like, what don't you like? Or you say, hey, when you speak to me like this, I feel this way. That's a lot more clear, a lot more concise. When you're a good communicator, you're actively listening. Going back to that, are you listening to understand, or are you listening to have a response? Or worse yet, if you're very ineffective, are you interrupting them? Are you ignoring them? Are you not engaging? Are they giving you feedback and you're just sitting there like, whatever, dude? How are you responding? How are you engaging in the conversation? Effective communication gives specific feedback. It's actionable. It's focused. Once again, ineffective, just like earlier with ambiguous and vague, it's negative or vague. The example I gave before is a great example of some effective communication. When you're putting the I feels or the I statements in front of, you do this, instead of the accusatory, you are a horrible communicator. It's just better when you say, I feel lost or confused when you speak in these vague and confusing terms. I feel talked down to when you use all these large words that you know nobody on the team understands. Effective communication often is open and safe. So you're willing to say the things. You're willing to say how you feel in that moment. You're willing to put yourself out there and be a little bit vulnerable. When communication's ineffective, people are closed off, they're withholding, they're critical of things. The space feels open to people. When communication's ineffective, they feel like they have to protect themselves because otherwise they're going to be torn down. And lastly, effective communication's on time. You're saying things within a time frame. If we're in the middle of a game and there's a mistake someone's making, you correct it then. You don't wait till after the game and they've made the mistake 30 other times. No, you make it then and there so that they can respond and do something about it. How do I work with teams or individuals on their communication? Well, it starts off a lot of times with role play and role modeling. So it might be finding videos or examples of people who are very great at communicating, having them watch, pick out things they like, things that they found very effective. Or it could be having a conversation with them. If they know they have a tough conversation with a teammate that they don't know how to say it, I'll sit there and be the teammate first so that they get to practice saying things in ways that at least I wouldn't find offensive or I think will be effective for them. Obviously, the better I know the other person, the better I'm able to critique those, but sometimes you just got to do what you can. The next one is storytelling relays. So think telephone. I give the message to the first person every row, and we have to see how it goes from there. Seeing how that communication piece shifts and goes, how it changes, how can we increase our effectiveness by truly listening. Blindfold exercises. My favorite with teams is navigating an obstacle course with 3 people. So you have the walker that has their eyes closed. You have a person who has their body turned and facing the opposite direction of the obstacle course. And they're the ones that are able to speak like right, left, forward, turn slightly, whatever it might be. And then you have the third person who's looking at the course but is not allowed to speak. So they're giving hand signals like, So the person who's walking does not crash into the chairs or the obstacles that we might have set. And then lastly is small group discussions. Many times in teams, in classrooms, and different things, we're stuck in these large groups that can be very hard to communicate our points. Some people just aren't comfortable talking in front of groups. So I break people into small 3-4 people sections so they can have deeper conversations without having to worry about, oh, how is this person going to respond? What is the thing that's going to come out of this? All these people are going to laugh at me. I can be here with my team now. Next up, how can coaches help build communication within their team? First one can be communication stations. So set up 4 or 5 stations throughout the gym, throughout the field, whatever it is, and have one specific drill for that spot. Maybe it is you're a weight room coach and you have a lower body day that day. And it's some plyos, some med balls, clean squats. At one of those stations, maybe it's required that they have to have written instructions. So you have it written out how you're going to do your box jump. The coach might read it or write it down, and then the players will read it and try to simulate what they're supposed to do without being told exactly what they're doing. Or maybe you have one of the other players or so write it down. Then over for your squats, you have nonverbal communication in the form of gestures and motions. So someone has to demonstrate how to do a squat without saying anything, any other directions, just demonstrate, do it, and have everybody else repeat it. Then you have verbal instructions without any demonstration or anything else. So you go over to the med ball and have to speak through. Bend down, pick up med ball with both hands, lift it above head with both hands so that you look like a pencil, straight, fully straight from bottom of your feet to the top of your hands, holding the ball between, and then slamming it down in the ground with force. That could be a version of the verbal communication. And then just having people rotate through it. With other things, you can have the players come up with the different ways they're going to describe, to demonstrate drills. It can be a perfect way for developing leadership too, because you have that one person that's assigned to each station, so that they're teaching their other teammates. Then you can have silent drills. So if you're a sport such as football, basketball, that's known for going into some hostile territory, loud crowds where verbal communication's a struggle, and you're a team that likes to talk to each other, have drills where the players can't talk to each other. They have to use nonverbal cues. They have to use the nonverbal communication to get their point across, to get the plays in, so they can practice that so when they get into the game, they know how to do it without speaking to one another. Then you have code word drills. So you have groups come up with a set of code words for certain plays, actions to do, and then you have them run through those drills using those code words so that they have to practice more actively listening, doing things that way. Communication under fatigue. So one of the biggest things is at the end of games, we're tired, it's harder to speak, communicate, all these things become hard because we've ran up and down the field so many times. So maybe your soccer team need to communicate from one person to the next, both verbally and non-verbally. If all you're ever doing is independent drills, you're never going to feel what it's like to be in a game. So you start off with doing your conditioning that day, getting people extremely tired, and then putting them in positions and drills where they have to communicate. So that way they are practicing how to communicate when they're tired, when they're gasping for air, how they can do things. And then finally, you have your peer instruction drills. So similar to your communication stations in the way before practice, you pick 3 people and you have them instruct their teammates on different drills. Maybe it's in the warm-up, maybe it's during the main part of practice or during the cool-down exercises, giving them the ownership, learning how to communicate to their teammates in different ways, be it verbally, non-verbally, visually, whatever it might be. So that's all I have for today. Hopefully that makes sense and how to be a better communicator, how to do some things that'll help you now and forever and take these skills outside of just the sports realm. And if you have any questions, feel free to go to our website, give us an email and see if we can help you set up a consultation or leave a comment down in the video. Until next time, if I said anything today that you found offensive for whatever reason, I hope you can forgive me. If there's anything you say in the comments that I find offensive, no, I'll probably forgive you. Brain strength, out.